Hey there, this is Akshat and welcome back to a new video. In this video, we will be learning three main widget. Basically, they are the block components. One is your block listener, another is your block builder, and third one, which is a superset of block listener and block builder, which is called block consumer. It has both the properties which are there in block listener also and block builder also. So first of all, before we cover what we are going to do in this video, I'm going to run this app so that our time is not wasted later, right? And just for your comfortability, I'll just increase the font size by this much. I hope it is visible now, right? And we are good. So what is block, how block works, why do we need block, everything I have covered in previous sessions which I took on block, right? We have covered a lot about block. We have covered how to make API calls using block. We have covered how to make simple e-commerce kind of module using block. All of them are there in my playlist. I'll add the link in the description, right? Or you can see that in the I button. So that about it. Now, many of you were asking me how or what is the difference between a block listener, block builder, and a block consumer? How can we use them? So my app has crashed. Let's see what is the issue. Signing key. Okay, why do we need a signing key actually? Okay, let me see. iPhone 2, we need to select iPhone 14 and we can run. Okay, now it will run and we are going to see a basic counter app. This is a new application. So I was saying that many of you were asking about the differences. So I have realized that you guys are still confused. What is a normal state? Like when in block we add a event and emit states, right? And when we emit a state, we have to render the UI according to the state that we have received from our block, right? According to the state that our block emits, we have to show the UI components. We have to change the UI components. Now there are two ways how we change the UI. Either we rebuild the complete UI, or either we just show or invoke a piece of the UI. When we invoke it, when we call it, invoke means calling, right? When do we call it? You call a bottom sheet, you call an alert dialog box, you call a scaffold bottom messenger that comes from the bottom. These are the UI components which you invoke, which you call, right? And for these components, we use listener. Here you are not rebuilding the UI. The app is going to stay intact. The app is going to remain as it is on top of our app, on top of our UI, which is there. You can, let's say I am seeing this screen, right? Where this floating action button is there and my this is there. Now, if I am calling a bottom sheet, that is going to come on top of this page, right? My whole UI is not going to change. The bottom sheet is coming on top of it. Similarly, if I'm calling a alert dialog box, the alert dialog box is going to come over this piece, not the whole page is going to go away. Now, no, the whole page is not going to get re-rendered, right? Similarly, the bottom snack bar message, the scaffold messenger, comes from here, right? It is coming on top of my page. It is not re-rendering or rebuilding my whole app, rebuilding my whole widget, right? So for these things, we need listener, because in listener, we don't rebuild the things. Now, if I come to building part, let's say I'm clicking on this plus. You can see the text widget is getting rebuilt. This is called rebuilding, right? It is not like that on top of my UI things are changing. No, the widget which was there is itself changing. The value of the text widget is changing. That means the text widget is re-rendering. It's rebuilding. Here we need a block builder, right? Here we need a block builder. So we are going to make a similar kind of application. We are going to change this complete counter thing to block. We will be using block listener to show a alert dialog box or a bottom sheet, and we are going to use a block builder for like re-rendering this text widget, and we will be using block consumer, which has both the properties of listening and building. I hope the concept is clear. I hope the purpose of this video is clear, right? Now, without wasting more time, let's begin. I hope this much font size is also enough. I hope it is clear and it is visible, right? So I'm going to clear everything. We are not going to take any boilerplate code, and we're going to start from the scratch as I usually do, right? So first of all, I'm going to import my material.dart and I'm going to write a void main function. You can skip this if you already know this stuff, right? And I'm going to call a run app, which will be having a new my app. My app we have to define now. So I'm going to say a stateless widget will be good, which will be my app. Okay, so this is okay. I have defined a stateless widget and it is going to return a material app. Okay, now in my lib I'm going to create a home page, or I'm going to create a features folder, right? I'm going to create a features folder. This features folder is going to have a feature which will be called counter feature, counter screen basically, or counter feature, right? This counter feature is going to have UI, that means this page, and the block files, right? So first of all, in the pubspec.yaml, I'm going to add my dependencies. So Flutter Bloc, I'm not worried about the version currently, right? So block and Flutter Bloc I have added. Let's hit Command S and it is going to run Flutter pub get, right? So this is going to run. Let's wait for it. And till here in the counter, I'm going to create a folder called UI, right? So this counter has this UI folder now. And in this counter itself, I'm going to create a block which will be called a counter block. Okay, so counter, block, and my UI. So this is all good. Okay, this is perfect. Now in my event, I'm going to first of all create my events. My first event will be adding a or incrementing a number, right? So class counter increment event extends a counter event. Okay, now let's create a block handler for this. So I'm going to remove all of this, right? On define our event and name this method, right? And just create a handler for this, create a method for this. So here we are going to increment our value, right? And we are going to maintain the value in the block itself. So int value is equal to 0, and this function is going to increment its value. Value is equal to value plus 1, and then it is going to emit a state. So let's come to states, and here what we are going to do is class counter increment state. Increment state extends a counter state, right? This is all good. This is a state which is going to rebuild my text widget, right? So let's copy this, and this state is also going to have the value. We will be passing the value from our business logic component to our UI. So final int val, right? Let's create a constructor, come to block and emit this state with the value as our value. This is all good. Now in the UI, I can go and create my counter page. Counter page dot dart. Sorry, let's rename this. Okay, now here I'm going to create my widget, stateful widget, and let's call it as counter page, and let's return a scaffold with an app bar, right? And this app bar is going to have a title which will be called a counter page. This will be wrapped with text. Looks good. Now in below the app bar, I'm going to have my body, which will be having a container. It will be having a column, and it will have some children. And definitely we are going to have our floating action button. Floating action button. On press, we are going to do something, right? So let's save this and let's go to main. In the material, in the home, I'm going to define my counter page. Counter page. This looks good, and I can see my counter page being rendered. Let's go to counter page, and here, first of all, in the floating action button, I'm going to define my icon. sorry, this will be child, sorry, this will be child icon, and this will be icons dot add. Okay, looks good. Now I'm going to create my block builder. First of all, this column is going to have main axis alignment as main center, and in this children I'm going to have my text, which let's say shows 0, and text style font size will be 32, right? Let's save it, and let's wrap this container with center. I think 32 is still less. I'm a big fan of bigger fonts. Let's say 60. Okay, this looks good. Now our thing is ready, our UI is ready. Now we need to see how can we, if I just click on this plus, I need to add my block event, this increment event, to my block, which increments the value, returns the updated value back to my counter page. So basically I have to rebuild, because I have to rebuild this text widget, right? So what I'll do is I'll wrap this center with a block builder. Where is my block builder? Yes, here is my block builder. I'm going to import it. I'm going to say this is going to be related to counter block, and it is always going to listen to a counter state. Okay, now we have to define our block here, the block parameter. So I'm going to create an instance of my block. So counter block is equal to counter block. Okay, and here in my block I'm going to say counter block. Okay, now when should I okay, so this is all good. So it is going to build whenever I get a counter state, and you can see that here my state is extending to my counter state. We are using inheritance, and this state is a child of my counter state. So this means that this block builder is going to listen to my counter increment state, right? Now what I can do is I can define builder. So here what I'll do is switch case I'll write, right? And it is going to render as per the state runtime type. Now case, which are the state cases? Counter increment state. If I'm getting a counter increment state from my block, I have to show this UI. Control X, counter increment state. I will show this. Let's remove the break. Default. If I'm not getting a counter increment state, what I'm going to return, I'm going to return a some text which will say something went wrong or not found state, something like that, right? So I will return a center child text not found. You can see that all the block builder things, let me write constant here, not constant. Okay, let's write constant here, because this is not going to change, right? So you can see that all these block, the block builder parameter should always have this return type, right? Should always have this return type, otherwise it will give you error. So this builder always needs to render some widget, render some UI component. So that's why it is always going to ask for a return widget, right? So we have defined it, no issues. Now what I want to say is this text, you can see, should be the value, the block value. So, and I know that this increment state is always going to have that value. So what I'll do is I'll write state dot val, right? And over here I'm going to say final success state is equal to state as, that means parse my state as a counter increment state. Okay, and here I can write, and this will be converted into .to string. So this is all good, right? Now what I'll do is I'll refresh this. You can see not found. Why not found? Because our block has not emitted any state, but by default it should have given me 0. That is my expectation. So what I'll do is I will, in the init state of this, I will add my increment event. So by default it is going to show me 1, right? Because by default it is going to add the value and then return me. So in the init state, what I'll do is I'll add this thing. I'll add an event to my block. that is counter block dot add counter increment event. So as soon as this widget will be rendered, the screen will be rendered, it is going to add my increment event. My counter event is going to listen to that event, increment the value, emit a state. The state will be listened, or state will be consumed by this block builder, and it will see that, okay, if I get a counter increment state, I need to show this, right? Let's refresh now. You can see 1. I hope you got it how we got 1. Because in the init state, I added the event, it incremented the value from 0 to 1 and then emitted a state with the updated value. This block builder consumed that value and it is showing me the current value of the block variable. So this is okay. Okay, this is fine. This is not an issue. I'll just write constant here. Now my problem statement, this you have understood how the block builder works. The block builder is there, or it exists, so that we can rebuild our values. Now the task is, I want to rebuild this whenever I click on this plus icon, right? So I'll add the same thing on press of my floating action button. So as soon as I click on it, it is going to add an event, it is going to emit a state, and it is going to get rebuilt, right? It is going to get rebuilt. Let's add this. It works perfectly, no doubt in this. Now my question is, now let's go to block listener. Block builder, you have understood how block builder is used to build the UI, build the UI components, right? Now why block listener is used? So block listener we use whenever we have to invoke some functions or call some functions. Now you know that alert dialog boxes or navigation functions, bottom sheets, snack bars, they are all functions. Whenever we need to call them or invoke them, we can use a block listener, right? Instead of a block builder. We don't rebuild anything. When I'm navigating from one page to another, that's just a function we are calling. We are not rebuilding anything, right? So navigations are also a part of block listener, or they can be invoked from the block listener concept, right? So now what we can do is, let's comment this code. The block builder code, we can comment it out, right? And from here, we can just take this piece of code. Body, and return this, and I'm going to just write 0 here. Okay. Now what I'll do is, what my main thing is, whenever I want to call, whenever I click on this plus icon, or what I'll do is, what I'll do is, I'll add another button here so that this functionality is not hampered, right? So below this column, below this text, I'll add constant sized box, height is 20, and I'll add a elevated button, child text add, right? And I'll add another button which I'll say snack bar. Okay, now I'm going to use block listener to give functionality to these two functions. For this, what my main thing is, whenever I click on this add button, I want to increment this thing. We have already seen this using block builder, but how can you do it using block listener? Below or before that, I'll show you how you can do, how can you show a snack bar using a block listener. Now when I'm talking about block listeners, we have to wrap this complete widget using with block listeners, right? So I'll wrap this with a block listener. Again, the block will be nothing but a counter block, right? State will be counter state. Counter state. Now what I'll do is, for listening the things, I'm going to define another state, right? And that state will be my action state, because these things, this snack bar, this alert dialog boxes, these navigations, they are not rebuilding stuff. They are just actions. So what I'll do is, I'll create again one abstract class I'm going to create. Abstract class counter action state extends a counter state, right? Now for all the things for which we need to invoke the functions, I'm going to emit counter action state children. What can be, how can we do that? So let's say I'm going to create a class counter show snack bar action state extends counter action state. Now I'm not extending to counter state, I'm extending to counter action state, because this snack bar is not a state which is going to rebuild. It is a state which is going to invoke a function, which is a snack bar function. So this is an action state, this is not a counter state. So that's why here I have written it. Now again I'm going to have an event class counter show snack bar event extends a counter event, right? And this is going to have like this, see, and I'm going to create a handler for this, which is going to do nothing but emit my counter show snack bar action state. Counter show snack bar action state. Now this action state I can listen in my listener. So you can see we have this listener. Now I can say if my state is this action state, not this action state, what I need to do, I need to invoke my snack bar function, snack bar messenger function. So scaffold messenger dot of context dot show snack bar which is going to have some content which will be snack bar, something like this, and I can have my semicolon. All right, and in this snack bar on press I can say counter block dot add counter show snack bar event semicolon. Save it. Nothing, it's not working currently. Let's rebuild. Okay, could not find the correct provider. Okay, so have we given, yeah, so in this block listener also we have to give my block, which will be counter block. Let's save it, and now let's see. Yes, now you can see my snack bar is, so what is happening in this elevated button, I'm adding my event counter show snack bar event. It goes here, it sees okay, I just need to emit an action state, and it comes to the counter page. It sees okay, my listener is listening to that counter show snack bar action state, and whenever this action state is received by my UI, it is just going to call this function, right? Similarly here you can write a navigator function, you can write a alert dialog function, you can write a bottom sheet function, you can write a set state function, which I'm just coming to it, right? So now what I'll do is I'll define another counter state only, but this will be a counter increment action state, right? And it is not going to have any value, right? And this I'm going to emit from here. So instead of this, I'm going to emit my counter increment action state. Now you will see what will happen, right? So in this counter page, I'm going to maintain a value, right? I'm going to maintain a value. Whatever I was doing on the block level, maintaining a value, I'm going to maintain it here. So int value is equal to 0. Now, as soon as this add is clicked, I want to add a event, the same event, right? So counter block dot add counter increment event, right? And here I'm going to write in else if state is counter increment action state set state value +1. So as soon as I'm going to receive this counter increment action state, I'm going to set state my value, right? And this 0 will be my value.toString. So whatever we did using block builder was the optimal thing to do, because there we had to rebuild the text widget. But that same thing we can do it using block listener. But again, we had to use a set state, which is not very optimal thing, right? Because set state means again you are rebuilding the thing. We have to do rebuilding, right? We have to change the value of our text widget. That means we have to do rebuilding. For that, block builder is the correct approach. What I'm showing to you is that you can achieve the same thing using block listener also. Using listener, this is the listener. It invokes a function, it calls a function. This set state is also invoking a function. Now using this function, we are again building the thing. So in listener also you can build the things, but not very good, right? So I can just refresh. I can say add, it's not working. Let's see what is the issue. So here I'm adding my increment event, which is okay. And let's go to block in my, okay, I did a very silly thing. We have to do this part here. Here we have to do it instead of this thing. Okay, let's save this. Let's refresh this. And yes, I can click on add and it works. So it is acting as similar to what we were doing using block builder, right? Same thing. This is again a listener. This is again a listener. So we are rebuilding the UI using a block listener. But a correct thing will be you just use a block builder, because that's what it is built for, right? Now the thing is, now you know about block listener. Now you know about block builder. Now what I'll do is I'll just again take this block listener code from here and just paste it here and comment it out. We are going to do the same thing, whatever we did. Yeah, I'm going to remove this add function, add button, and just going to keep the snack bar and just going to put this bottom floating action button. This is going to be there for rebuilding the UI, the text widget, and this will be for invoking the snack bar function. I'm going to combine these two functionalities using block consumer. Consumer has both the properties listener and a builder, right? Let's do it. So in my body, I'm again going to have the same thing that we have in block builder, that is this UI. Yes, I think not this one. Yes, I think the center will be good. Yes, I can just copy this and paste it here, right? And I'll just put it 0 for now, and the center will be wrapped with a block consumer now. Block consumer. Again, we'll be listening, or we'll be connected to counter block and listening to the counter states. And we'll define our block as counter block. Okay, so we are good here. Okay, 0. Now listener, I'll remove it. Yes, listener we have builder. See, you can see in block consumer we got both listener and a builder, right? Now we have two main properties, listen when and build when. Listen when, build when. This shows when do you want to listen, when do you want to build. So just say I want to listen, just remove this. Yeah, I want to listen previous. Yes, when my current state is a counter action state. That's what we wrote those action states, because I want to listen only when my action states are emitted, not on any other state. And I want to build when my states are not the action states, right? So just paste it. When my state is not an action state, that means it is a normal state, then I want to build. Otherwise, I don't want to build. All right. I'm going to have that elevated button. I'm going to have those two elevated buttons. Yes, I'm going to paste them below my text and will remove the add button. Yes, let's save it. So now what will happen is, and definitely this state we are going to handle the same way as we did for the block builder using the switch case. So I'm going to have my switch case again, and in the builder I'm going to write it like this, and we need to close this consumer, so put a semicolon. What it needs is, yes, it needs a closure, and it needs a closure here, not like this. Okay, then it needs a, okay, I'm confused here now. What are we missing? So we have written build when, listen when, we have written a listener. The listener value will be the same like this. If state is show snack bar action state, I need to invoke this snack bar function. So let's copy it and let's paste it here, right? And we are going to close this part like this. Yes, put a comma. I'll just resize this and show you the code. Yes, so one thing we are missing here is we need to, yes, perfect. Now we have closed it. Now I'll show you the code. See, so we have a block consumer instead of a block listener and a block builder. We want to listen also, we want to build also. This is our target, right? We have defined the block, we have defined listen when and build when. So I want to listen when my state is a counteraction state. I want to build when my state is not a counteraction state. Perfect. When I get a show snack bar action state, I want to show a snack bar. In the builder, I'm having a switch case. If I get a counter increment state, I want to show this UI, and I want to update my value according to the success state value which I get. And if I don't get my counter increment state, I will be returning not found. Now can you guess what I'll get here? I'll get a not found. See, if even if I refresh, I'm going to get a not found. Why? The reason is, in the init state, yes, we are adding a counter increment event, but if you remember, in the increment, we are not emitting my counter increment state. We are emitting a counter increment action state, which we wrote for that add button. So we need to comment this and we need to uncomment this. Save it, refresh, you see 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? And why we are not getting our, okay, where did our that part go? Our elevated button, did we remove it? Let's add it again. That elevated button we need, right? So I will copy this elevated button and paste it over here below my text widget. I'll save it, yes, and you can see the snack bar. So this snack bar thing is a part of this listener. This building thing is a part of our builder. So consumer has both listener and a builder. And here we come to the end of our video, which showed you the differences between block builder, block listener, and a block consumer. Block consumer is nothing but a superset or a parent of block listener and builder. It has both the properties, right? So I hope you like this video, and I hope you will like other block videos also. I'm going to push this code to my GitHub, and you can just refer it. The link is in the description. So, and soon I'm going to start full stack videos. I'll be starting with Node, Express, and TypeScript. And for the front end, we definitely will be using Flutter. So I hope you are liking my content. And till the next video, keep coding, keep innovating, and thanks a lot.